So let's dive into a really fascinating idea from a recent monograph. It's this, that a mysterious geometric symbol, Metatron's cube, is way more than just some ancient drawing. The source we're looking at today argues that it's actually a kind of map, a blueprint for how our own consciousness experiences those moments of profound revelation.
All right, so the source material we're digging into today doesn't start with some dry, abstract theory. Nope. It starts with a personal, recurring vision, something that seems to happen right at this boundary, where the everyday world gets thin and something else starts to shine through.
So picture this. The vision starts here, in a silent, stretched-out black rectangle. It's described not as empty, but as this field of pure depth, pure potential, like the moment right before something big is about to happen. And then, bam, a column of brilliant white circles just accelerates right at you. And what's really wild is how the source describes this force. It's not just something you see, it's something you feel. It's this physical momentum you can feel in your chest, in your breath, in your pulse.
And then, at the very edge of all this oncoming light, there's a wolf, an ancient, watchful wolf, standing guard. The author is super clear about this. This is not just some random image. It's a piece of real, lived data that needs explaining.
So this vision, right, it becomes the central question for us. Why do these specific things, geometric patterns, animal guides, keep showing up so consistently across different times, different cultures, and even different states of consciousness? According to our source, this is the very mystery that leads us straight to Metatron's cube.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around the cube, we first have to understand the language it speaks, sacred geometry. And what's interesting is that this wasn't always some mystical, out-there practice. It was actually born from a really practical need, to measure fields, to align walls, and to literally bring order out of chaos.
This journey from a practical tool to a sacred map took a long, long time. Take ancient Egypt, for example. When they had to redraw property lines after the Nile flooded every year, it wasn't just surveying, it was seen as a sacred act of restoring cosmic balance. But it was really Plato in Greece who made this huge leap. He proposed that geometry wasn't just for measuring land, but that it was the very architecture of reality itself.
Now, a key pattern you see all over the ancient world is this one, the flower of life. At first glance, it looks organic, beautiful, almost floral. But our source argues that hidden inside these simple overlapping circles is a secret, crystalline architecture. And this is the cool part. The big reveal is actually surprisingly simple. See, Metatron's cube isn't some totally separate, random invention. It comes right out of the inner logic of the flower of life. All you have to do is connect the centers of those circles, and there it is. The cube reveals itself, kind of like finding a hidden skeleton beneath the petals of a flower.
But of course, a pattern needs someone to actually see it, right? And a revelation needs a translator. So, the source we're looking at identifies two really essential archetypes in this whole process of bringing cosmic order down to human understanding. So first up, you've got the scribe mediator. These are figures like Enoch in Jewish mysticism, who goes up to the heavens, gets transformed into the angel Metatron, the celestial scribe. Or think of Hermes Trismegistus, who gets this divine download of information. The job of this archetype is basically to travel between worlds and translate the stuff that's formless and impossible to describe into something we can actually grasp.
And then there's the second archetype, the guardian. And this is where that wolf comes back into the picture. This figure stands right at the doorway of transformation. Its role isn't just to guide you through, it's also there to test and protect you, to make sure you're ready. It regulates the whole experience, so the revelation can be integrated instead of just becoming overwhelming and shattering.
But look, this isn't just about ancient history or mythology. The source makes a really strong case that these patterns and these archetypes are alive and well today. They're showing up in modern visionary experiences with, honestly, remarkable consistency.
We're seeing this pop up all over the place in modern settings. From clinical studies on psychedelics to deep research into near-death experiences, people consistently report seeing these complex geometric patterns and meeting guiding figures. And often, these are people with absolutely zero prior knowledge of sacred geometry.
So naturally, you have to ask the skeptical but really important question, right? Are these profound visions just the random firings of a brain under stress? Are we just talking about plain old hallucinations here?
Well, the monograph we're looking at takes a very different view. It says, hold on a minute. Instead of just dismissing these experiences as random noise, maybe we should treat them as structured data about consciousness itself. The key here is that they aren't random. They are patterned. And those patterns seem to be pointing towards something really meaningful.
So how do all these pieces actually fit together?
You've got the initial vision, the sacred geometry, the archetypes, the modern experiences. Well, the source synthesizes all of it into a single unified theory it calls mediated revelation.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. Metatron's cube isn't presented as some kind of magical object. It's a symbolic map. It's an architecture that shows us how our own consciousness structures these profound, life-changing moments of insight.
So this whole process, this mediated revelation, is described as having 4 key parts, and you really need all of them. First, the guardian makes the experience safe. Then, the mediator translates the insight so you can understand it. The geometry gives it a coherent structure. And finally, there's integration, which is the crucial step of actually bringing that insight back into your real life.
So in the end, the cube is presented as this incredible conceptual bridge. It connects the world of ancient scribes and mystics with the modern world of psychedelic research and consciousness studies. It suggests there's a common underlying architecture for revelation itself.
And this whole thing leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. If this monograph is right, and if geometry truly is a fundamental language of consciousness, a way it structures meaning at its deepest levels, then the question we're left with is, what is it trying to tell us?